for supper, and there's 3 generations of chiappers at the table tonight. And I'm going to take this opportunity to grill Dad about our own family's longevity.
Grazie.
What was Nonno Pino's words of wisdom, Dad, for living a long life?
Mick, I think my dad's words of wisdom for living a long life was to have an active life and a happy life and a very strong family life. The family was everything to Nonno. And he was a very, very active man up until the day he died. He was very, very active.
He would be out in the workshop. You say that now, that you have not the energy like your dad had.
My dad's family, they had nothing. They were really peasant farmers, and they had nothing, and yet they were happy.
Even though they were peasants living on very little, they lived quite a long life considering.
They lived very long lives.
How old was Nonna Maria?
She was gone 93, I think, when she died, my dad's mum. My mum's mum died, she'd gone 90. And we all lived together. If you remember, Louise's mum, I think, was nearly 100.
Well, I think she did have 100, didn't she?
My grandfather's sister, she would still, in her 80s and 90s, jump over her garden fence to go and get her eggs from her chickens. She'd get up at 3 in the morning when we'd come in from a night out and be like, right, let me cook you a plate of pasta and I'll make you a plate of spaghetti. She was the most active lady I've probably ever met, right up until her last days.
Listen, if I had the recipe for a long life, I'd be a very rich man.
I'll have a bit of wine, Dad.
Do you know what? My dad might never get to be a very rich man, but he's just said something absolutely priceless to me. And it's left me with the strong suspicion that I might have been asking the right questions, but in the wrong place. I think the real answers to longevity are not here in Wales. They lie in my own ancestral roots, back home in Italy. Welcome to Europe's greatest longevity hotspot, a place where people live longer, healthier lives than anywhere else across the whole continent, where the levels of cancer, diabetes and heart disease are a fraction of what they are in Wales, and where there are more centenarians than anywhere else in the Northern Hemisphere. This is the province of Ogliastra on the Italian island of Sardinia. A place where there are so many octogenarians, nonagenarians, and centenarians roaming the streets that a mere tricenarian, someone in their 30s like me, is a bit of a novelty. So what's going on? Well, that's why I'm here.
So I'm going to go out and I want to meet some of those locals to work out what's the recipe for living a long life, and hopefully then I can take those secrets back to Wales.
With a population of around 59,000 people scattered across its hillsides and small towns, the province of Ogliastra is the same size as the borough of Merthyr. But unlike Merthyr, 1 in 3 of its inhabitants currently live into their 90s. And while there's only 1 centenarian in the whole of Merthyr, there are 33 alone in Ogliastra's municipal town of Villagrande, which has an overall population of just 4,000 people. So is it the sun, the fabled Mediterranean diet, or is there a hidden fountain of youth somewhere on the island? Well, I am about to find out. Starting with a visit to Ingino Vialli, who at just 100 years and 39 days is Villagrande's youngest centenarian.
Il segreto è per non morire prima.
I was just asked, what's the secret of living until he's 100? And he said, it's not to die before. Ma ti piace mangiare ancora?
Cena non ne mangio.
Non lo mangi. When it comes to food, he said he doesn't eat evening meals anymore, but ti fa bene mangiare,
Sì, a trattare bene per quel riguardo. No?
I said, what is his favourite meals? And he said, you know, a good plate of pasta. And it's nice to see how Italians, you know, pasta is always that first dish you might give to a baby, but even as you get older, it still remains a favourite.
Signor Ingino and I spent the next 20 minutes talking through his life story.
Quando
It was a story that had many resonances with the centenarians back in Wales.
I just asked Signorin Gino, what's the secret to long life, and was being active, working hard part of it? And he said he was one of 8 children, 4 girls, 4 boys, and his father always said the girls had to go until primo elementare, to school, until the first year. The boys had to go up to the 5th because it was really important they learned to write, especially if they had to go off to war. He lasted until the 1st year. He did 1 day of his 2nd, packed it in, and basically went and worked the land for his family, which was olive farming, wheat and wine. And he said, we certainly enjoyed the years where, the wine harvest and had a good life. So clearly he made a good choice to pack in the studies and come and work the land. And that is, I think, evident that active lifestyle, that natural way of keeping fit, has obviously served him well. But he did just tell me he is waiting to go to bed down the road in the cemetery. But he's clearly lasting well, and he's enjoying living those stories and those memories. È stato un grande piacere.
Sì.
Grazie mille, buona giornata.
Grazie.
Ciao, grazie.
Oh, what a beautiful man. Although I'm not sure that in Gino's recipe of leaving school early and spending your days making wine is the message I should be taking back to Wales. Tempting as that sounds. I want to take back some hard, practical facts. So I've arranged to meet Dr. Gianni Pez, a molecular biologist at the University of Sassari. A world-renowned expert, he's been studying longevity on Sardinia for over 15 years. In fact, it was Dr. Pez and his colleague Michel Poulain who coined the famous term blue zone, which denotes a region where the average life expectancy is considerably higher than elsewhere in the world. And he's brought me to Villagrande's City Hall to reveal to me the fruits of his blue zone studies.
Are there only 4 at the moment in the world?
At the moment, only 4, yes. Nicoya, Sardinia, Icaria and Okinawa.
While studies continue into the other 3 longevity hotspots, it's the sheer wealth of historical records here on Sardinia that means Dr. Pez and his colleagues have been able to draw some of the most comprehensive conclusions about what causes longevity.
This is the civil archive that started in 1866.
Okay.
Then we have the parish archives that date back to the 16th century. So there is the possibility to reconstruct any family tree for 4 centuries. Absolutely unique in the world. And this is very important because it makes easier to do the genetic study as well.
Interestingly, Dr. Pez's genetic studies have led him to a wholly unexpected conclusion.
When I started 15 years ago, I thought that the genetic component was very important. But progressively, I changed my mind and now think that, let's say, 80% of longevity is explained by environmental or lifestyle factors instead of genetics.
Okay.
So if genes are only 20% of the longevity equation, what, according to Dr. Pez, are the other factors?
Physical activity, a good nutrition, social support, a purpose in life that include also spirituality if you want, and the 5th one, is just by chance.
Okay.
Chance, eh? The roulette of life. Luckily for me in Villagrande, there are no buses to be run over by. Although wandering the streets, I can see casual evidence of what Gianni has told me. On the healthy nutrition front, it's really interesting to note there are no big supermarkets in the town, but everyone seems to have a patch of ground where they grow their fruit and veg or raise a couple of chickens or pigs. There are no takeaways, no processed foods, everything appears to be fresh and locally produced. Life couldn't be any different back home in Wales, where we've got kebab shops, burger bars and processed supermarket ready meals available on every corner. And where basic kitchen skills, no longer part of our school's core curriculum, are so lacking that many of us wouldn't know how to cook a spinach leaf, let alone grow one. Dr. Pez's other key ingredients were also readily observed on the streets of Villagrande. Physical activity, Cut into the hillsides, these higgledy-piggledy streets provide a daily workout for the calves and cardiovasculars. There's plenty of social support and interaction, and what I've noticed is how the young and the old mix freely. Spirituality? Well, that's a given. We're in Italy. But the one thing Gianni said that really struck me was about having a purpose in life, something to get you out of bed every morning. Apparently, the people of Ogliastra province never really retire. They might slow down, but otherwise they just keep on going, getting up every morning to do whatever it is they've got to do. This is particularly true of the men, and what's unique about Sardinia as a blue zone is that unlike the other 3 longevity hotspots, there are as many male centenarians here as there are female. So the work-life balance? Maybe it's really an unhealthy myth. And actually, the secret is to keep on working until you drop, which allegedly is exactly what the peasant farmers of Ogliastra do. So we're heading out of Villagrande to see the evidence of Gianni's research and how working in the outdoors and having a very active lifestyle is really one of the strong contributing factors to longevity. In the Ascari Hills above Villagrande, on 26 acres of scrubland, 81-year-old Francesco Messina rears over 300 head of dairy ewes, goats, cows, and pigs. Rising with the sun, he works 7 days a week, 365 days a year, as have generations of Messina menfolk before him.
Mio nonno paterno.
He lives here on this land. He sleeps here. He said, you know what, sometimes he even sleeps here in the open this time of year. It's so warm, you just light something, there's nothing better than the fresh air. He's 81 now, but basically his dad, his granddad, his great-granddad, all were farmers and shepherds. His granddad lived till he was 86 and his father lived till he was 89, all doing this life as shepherds and as farmers, working the land. Okay, andiamo a vedere, dai. They haven't modernised any of the machinery. They milk all the sheep, the goats, everything by hand.
This is Francesco's nephew, Gianluca. He's only 54, so he's still a kid. But he's just milked all 217 of the ewes by hand, as he does every day.
E quindi con questo latte cosa ne fate? Per famiglia? Ah, formaggio. E lo vendete poi?
Sì, sì.
So this was all the milk from all these sheep tonight, and this is going to go to make some cheese. Quanto ci metti a lattare tutte?
Un'oretta.
Un'oretta. So for all those sheep, it takes about an hour to milk them.
And while work's undoubtedly hard, the living's no easier either.
Quindi sei stato nato anche forse in...
Ma no, nato in paese.
No,
no,
in paese,
sarebbe
okay.
bella, no?
So up until 20, 30 years ago, he spent his life in similar huts like this. He said it's a hard life, but equally it's one that he's been brought up on, one that he's used to, so why would he have it any other way? E come mai che si dice che la vita è dura?
Questo è sempre, da quando ero giovane, sempre avevo il bestiame, più che altro sono affezionato al bestiame.
I said, why, if life is hard, why hasn't he gone to live in the town? And he said, well, it's my job. And he said, more than anything, I love my job and I love working with the animals, from cows, sheep, pigs. I'm here in nature.
Rimanevano al monte.
In his opinion, most of the centenarians were farmers or shepherds, and they lived a life like this in the land. So this would have been where they lived. They'd sleep on hard floors, very simple life. They'd cook on the fire, work the land in the day and stay in here at night. It's been really lovely coming up here to finally see a real shepherd from this area. I'm not sure if it's really for me. I don't know if I could, you know, do what he's doing, live out here literally on the land. But it definitely has made me think about how important it is to live an active lifestyle, a lifestyle, not just, you know, going to the gym, doing exercise every day, but making it part of your life and also slowing down your pace of life, not worrying about too many things, the speed and the pace of life that we live today, really taking a step back and thinking, you know, do we really need to do all that we do, and will that affect your lifespan in the future?
During the past 24 hours, I've got so much more clarity about the varied ingredients it takes to live to be 100. But I left Francesco's smallholding with one nagging thought. His way of life died out in the Welsh valleys when the first mine shaft was sunk. And it's under threat here in Sardinia too, as increasingly people leave the tough life in the hills for the easier life of the towns. But does this mean abandoning the life-prolonging traditions and values of the countryside? Or is there a healthy compromise? The following morning, I got up early to spend my final day in Sardinia with a family who firmly believe you can have it all.
Ciao, buongiorno.
Piacere.
Meet Mariangela and Marco Mareu, a husband and wife team who run what's best described as a family cooperative. Marco and Mariangela live in Villagrande, sharing their house with their two teenage children, Gabriele 17 and Lucia 21. And they share their lives with their parents, Marco's dad who's 89 and Mariangela's dad who's 76, Marco's mum 80 and Mariangela's mum who's 73. As a unit, the extended Mareu family grow, rear, make, cook and bake everything they eat. It's a very typical family setup here in the Ogliastra Valley. But this good life is also a tough life, requiring hard work throughout long days and the weekends. Both Marco and Mariangela have jobs. Marco's a forestry worker and Mariangela runs a small B&B at the family home. So their day begins around 7 a.m, milking the goats.
Sono cose che ci hanno insegnato i nostri bisnonni, nonni, genitori. Io l'ho imparato all'età di 7 anni.
He said this is something they've learned from their parents, their grandparents and their great-grandparents. I said, how old was he when he learned to milk? And he said about 6, 7 years of age. E quindi per voi è importante fare questo, tenere le...
Sì, sì. È importante per noi, per il futuro, perché sono cose buone, cose tradizioni che alleviamo nelle nostre campagne.
I asked him, you know, is this really important for him to do and pass down in particular to his children? He said, absolutely. Otherwise, he said, it's going to get lost. The memory he has, not just from his parents, but from his grandparents, was they always used to teach him to respect nature. And if you respect nature, it will respond and it will keep you healthy and well into the future.
While the goats hop down the hill to spend the day grazing by the riverbank, we head back to the house to turn their milk into some cheese.
The whole process they're doing today to make this cheese is completely natural. They're not using any additives, preservatives. The thickening agent to make the milk the cheese is this, the goat's stomach.
Their goats keep the family in milk, yoghurt and cheese the whole year round. They never need to pop to the supermarket because they never run out. What's more, goat's milk has a higher nutritional value than cow's milk, and studies suggest the milk helps lower the risk of cardiovascular disease and colon cancer. Not that the family need to be told all of this. For them, it's a way of life that young Gabriele is set to continue into the next generation.
For me, there's nothing better than seeing a young family still using old methods to create some amazing, amazing food from the land. You know, this has been homemade. And look, quanti anni hai?
17.
17 years of age. He knows how to kill a goat, feed a goat, milk a goat, and create the most delicious cheese, fresh from the land. Brilliant stuff.
The one thing I'm quickly realising is there's no fast food here. The whole day revolves around preparing meals for the table. The Mareus are not farmers, they're just ordinary working people with a plot of land on which they raise all of the food they consume. They don't go to the supermarket or call in a takeaway, they just beaver away as a family to create fresh, wholesome food that also keeps them exceptionally active.
Talk about that for a spinach leaf. This is some serious work. You know, you've got to work the land, you've got to sow the seeds, you've got to help them grow, you've got to stop all the snails eating them, you've got to collect them, clean them, cook them. Serious work for a plot this size. You don't do it on your own. It's a whole family thing. And Mariangela said, when we collect the potatoes, she said it's almost like a party. She said, we all come here, we've each got our jobs, and it's a real social occasion. So you can really see, I guess, how strong those social networks are. Here we've got the beans. I've heard, and a lot of people have talked about the importance of beans for contributing to longevity, and beans were often a substitute to meat for the poor families because they've got a lot of protein in, and for those families that maybe didn't have meat, or maybe at certain times of the year the animals weren't ready to eat, it provided them with those important nutrients to keep them going, you know, for the hard and tough months. Andiamo avanti?
There's one more place I want to visit before I taste some of the family's produce. That's their cantina, an Italian larder that's like an Aladdin's cave for foodies. Cheeses, wines, pulses, olives, smoked meats and sausages, all of it produced and preserved by the family.
Inghilterra e in tutto il mondo le cose, il cibo processed, lo sai, la roba che è fatta tutta preservativi, McDonald's, fast food.
Che
Li consumiamo.
Sono tutti sale e pepe.
So I said, you know, obviously in our world of today, processed foods are all around us usually, and with added preservatives, you know, what's their feelings on that? And they were like, all they use when curing the meats is salt and pepper. They use no preservatives, nothing. It is all pure stuff. Io vengo a casa tua adesso a mangiare. I'm going to their house. I want to eat some of this stuff. Andiamo?
Andiamo.
Okay.
The family have offered to rustle up a typical Sardinian supper for me. So while Marco gets on with the man's work of roasting a goat haunch, I'm going to join the rest of the family in the kitchen.
I'm so excited about today because just like in my family where you've got everyone in the family roped in to do different jobs, we are here with Mariangela, and she's got her mum, her daughter, her sons behind, and this is what is very, very typical, particularly of this family, vero?
Sì, lo facciamo spesso.
Sì.
Although what I wasn't expecting was the dish we were about to prepare, the local speciality, a minestrone soup that not only takes 6 hours to make, but is heavy on the carbs and has a high fat content. No olive oil-rich Mediterranean diets here.
So basically it is a heavy dish. You know, you've got beans, you've got potatoes, you've got pasta in it, and the cheese and all these flavours. But Mariana just said traditionally this was often fed to, you know, the farmers, the men that were away from home, feeding all these animals up in the hills, and often they'd come back after a week, and this was real kind of like a dish that would fill their bellies, you know, make them feel like it's great to be home, but you know, they needed it as well because they'd been away for all that time.
Sa mungi le caprette, poi sa anche ammazzarle, poi anche cucinarle, e poi ce la mangiamo tutte con le famiglie.
So I asked, is this a typical job that the man does? And he said, absolutely, and it's been passed down from generations to generations. The women often do the first course, the pastas, the risottos, and it's the men that look after the meat. And he said for him it's very important to pass this down. His son knows how to kill, how to, you know, prepare the meat and to cook it. So you can see he's very proud of that.
Come mealtime, what I took to be a cosy family get-together seems to be transforming into a village festa.
I don't actually know what is going on, but I believe a family of, what was it, 5, 6 people has suddenly multiplied into what looks like 25? Doesn't look like this is going to be a small thing. It's going to be pretty much a massive feast with half the village, but hey, I suppose that's Italian families for you. So this is clearly, in my opinion, what Italians are all about, and particularly here in Villagrande, it starts from working the land, cultivating your own produce, and then obviously cooking and eating all together. It doesn't really get much better than this.
Unadulterated, homemade produce consumed at a communal table by family and friends while being serenaded by the young folk singing traditional old folk songs. Simple lives, simple foods and simple rituals, passed down and on through generation after generation. I've no doubt that every single ingredient of Living to be 100 is here in this room right now. If only I could bottle it up and bring it back home. And although I leave Sardinia the following morning without the elixir of life clasped in my hands, I do believe I've got some valuable long life lessons to take back to Wales, which I can certainly share with the Tantum family.
So I'm back where I started on this journey for living a long life. Here in Wales, going to go and see the Tantums. I've learnt a lot, but I got a nice big bag of goodies that I'm going to take into them. And where better to share that experience than round the dinner table enjoying a Sardinian-inspired supper. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing? You all right?
Thank you.
I got some goodies.
Hello.
Look at them.
So, if you guys are committed to living a healthier life, I reckon we can have a chat about some things that we can make a change already. For me, one of the most important things that I saw in Sardinia was there was no processed food, nowhere to be seen. Quite simple, not to eat anything processed. Do you think you could do that?
Yes.
Yes, we've done it
it before.
Yeah.
Do it
So
again.
there's no reason why we can't do it again.
Yeah, it's not easy, you know, you've got to be organised, you've got to make sure you've got, you know, space, time to prepare things. But you've said you love freezer meals, even though they're bought from the shop, okay? We can do that, we can create. You love doing shepherd's pie, fish pie, they are brilliant, brilliant freezer meals. It's just a matter of making them in bulk, putting them into portions, and then you can create your own freezer meals, but they're home produced. I think if you could cut out processed food and fizzy drinks. How does that sound? Fizzy drinks out of your diet.
I don't drink any fizzy drinks.
Don't you?
No.
No? I am telling you, you would see a difference. And I can show you some really simple recipes that you can prepare in like 5 minutes from the stuff that you already buy that will make your life simple.
Tio?
Right, we're going to do a super, super quick and simple pasta sauce, okay? Lee, you're going to do the chopping. Woohoo! Finely chop an onion. Splash of olive oil in the pan, then we're going to pop in that onion. At this stage, you can put whatever veg you want, okay? If you fancy they haven't had any greens, you could put a bit of broccoli in. If you like your freezer, frozen peas, frozen chopped veg, you could now toss in a handful and mix that in. What I'm going to do, I'm going to speed peel some lovely ribbons of carrot. You don't need too much, just a little bit of veg. Peel some lovely bits of courgette in. Give that a stir all together. And then, once that's sweated down, we're going to add our tin of chopped tomatoes. Right then, into this, we're going to put stock cube.
Smells lovely.
A little spoon of cream cheese. That'll just give it a lovely bit of creaminess. For me, being Italian, I don't think you can have pasta sauce without Parmesan. And again, this means you use less salt as well. It's just a more natural, and it is expensive, but if you only use a little amount each time, that will last you, you know, a couple of months. But that's done. You could easily double, if not triple that quantity. And then that freezes brilliantly, so you can freeze it in little individual containers again, and there again you've got your freezer meals that are fresh. And basically when you want to cook it, you just pull it out, whack it in the microwave to defrost it, and throw it over pasta.
Did you find out any other secrets to family life in Sardinia?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the things I brought away from Sardinia was the sense of family. So big communities where the family is really important. And, well, yes, you agree, don't you? Yes. And basically, it's the idea that it's not just eating good food, it's the whole process is they sit together, they cook together, they socialise together, and there's this kind of family network. So it's not just the cooking, it's the sitting down together, enjoying it together around a dinner table.
That's one thing that we've always done. We always sit at the table to eat.
It's important.
It's
we always make
important
sure
to
that
us.
that is something we do every night.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what, if we end up having late dinner, it's at the table.
Well, that's
Always together, always at the table.
Smells lovely.
I hope you like it.
Absolutely gorgeous.
It's really nice. So how was the pace of life in Sardinia? Was it as busy and as chaotic as ours? Or?
No, definitely not. They, you know, spend all day cooking one dish that they might eat at the end of the day, and it's a very slow pace of life. But I just think we've got to be realistic. We live in Wales. We don't live in sun-drenched hills with vegetable patches the size of a football pitch, you know. We do live in communities like we do, but I do think, you know, there are factors that we could all do, I think, myself included, to improve our quality of life. Trying to walk every day, you know, even if it is only 10 minutes to work, or even if, you know, it's on the weekend, you take the kids and it's raining, but you put some coats on. Shouldn't really make any excuses, because we have got beautiful surroundings that we live in. You might actually say, you know what, we just feel so much better. And I do believe that, you know, I was brought up in an Italian household in the Welsh Valleys, but the one thing my dad was always adamant about, it had to be cooked fresh, and it had to be all of us round the table. They certainly didn't say, don't drink a glass of wine in Sardinia. In fact, they all drank wine. So, you know, maybe it's a walk to the pub with your family for a glass of wine, and then to come home to a home-cooked meal. There's nothing wrong with that. Salute! Salute! Iachida! So what have I learned from my search of finding the secrets of living until you're 100? When I first started on this journey, I had at the back of my mind that one of the factors might be money, that somehow wealth could buy you your health. But actually, having visited the Welsh centenarians and the hill farmers of Sardinia, they actually proved that quite the opposite was true. A hard life of honest graft, especially if it's in the outdoors, can actually help you live to 100. And certainly, if you've got a good diet, a strong family unit, and a purpose in life. But are all these things possible in a 21st century Wales? Well, actually they are, but we've got to work harder to make them work, because our lifestyle is against us. But given all of that, the tools are there for us to live a long and healthy life. It's just a matter of us utilising them. And for that, there's no excuse. I keep thinking back to something Doris told me on her 105th birthday.
Life is what you make it. It's you are the important person all the time. And it's you. I got to make it, nobody else.
But it's you that's got to make it, nobody else.
And the season continues on Friday on BBC One Wales. Will Alfie's Angels all be ready for the Cardiff Half Marathon? Run for your life at 7:30.